Good morning everyone, and it is Roxy's Journal of Stitchery Volume 4 Part 3. So I've been loosely following this. I'm making it up, but I'm using the idea of it. So I've been drawing on all the little lines and, you know, just working out where to fill gaps. And I've done a little stitch up here on those little daisies fire, you know, like they're like pinwheel fire work type of things, but they could also be seen as daisies. And I had every intention maybe to fill in this part here with a satin stitch and make it quite solid, but I've ended up coming up into, you know, up into the top here for the little forget-me-nots, and I think I like that, having that bit of space. I think it would be detracting from the initials, so I've finished my initials and I think I've filled it up enough. I reckon I have. So I've got this DMC number 8, and the colour or the variegation would be 4501, so number 8. So it's a good weight, because this is quite thick, the wool. And what I thought, if I use this variegation, it's going to have a bit of blue, a bit of pink, a bit of pale green, and whatever the colour is that blends between. There's even a little bit of more of a white in there. So I thought if I did the flowers in that, then the flowers would all be quite variegated. I think I'm going now. I did use my friction pen this time, so I got that right. Oh, that's way too long. It's going to take ages. I think I'll still stick to the French knot in the middle like this. So it's not going to be a problem, because I can iron the back and get rid of the friction pen now. Unlike with the wool, I had to really, you know, really cover that. So each of these little petals, just haven't really thought how I'm going to do them. I think I guess I'll just do a satin stitch for each petal. And they'll just all have a good variety of colours in them. Obviously, forget-me-nots are blue, but this will be fantasy flowers, maybe. Whatever. So even my little outlines are pretty they're pretty rough. I'll have to have a look how they're looking. It may be that I've just got to do it as if there's no petals, just all the way around, filling it in. Yeah, I don't mind it. Okay, it's part of the journey, isn't it? I feel that the creative flow of it is, for me, I did have that discussion actually the other day. The creative flow is more important than the linear logical, and I had that discussion with my friend who I get a massage from once every so often, Louise, fabulous massage. We were just talking about how the really clear-cut, thought-out ideas, which works for some people. There's not really, you know, it's not really, there's no right or wrong. It's what works for you. And it's interesting because the creativity has been the subject of quite a few discussions I've had with people over this past week. So Louise makes lovely little felted things. And we were talking about someone who can make felted animals, because I saw a girl on Instagram, and her felted cats were so lifelike, I just said, how does anyone do that? It was like they looked like real cats. I just had no idea. But I've never done any felting, so I guess needle felting I'm talking about. So I don't know how anyone could be that precise with the little faces and the bodies and the shapes and everything. Oh yeah, liking that. Loving how it just comes into that variegation. All right, so the point I'm making is I had a rough outline there that I was going to try and follow, and in the end I couldn't, because you have to allow I think you have to allow the thread to speak to you as well, and you have to allow the process of your own stitching to speak to you as well. So it's your own endeavours, the thread, and the original idea. So it sounds a bit airy-fairy, but honestly, I went yesterday out to visit my sister and her husband. Now, her husband's brother died last week, and I think it was important to go and visit him. And we ended up having quite a discussion, because they're very, they've got their veggie patch and their chooks, and they're pretty grassroots, but they're also fairly intelligent, I guess. Like, my sister works 3 days a week at, it's like a science place. It does sort of cutting edge scientific stuff. Not quite sure exactly, because I haven't been there or seen it, so because I'm a visual learner, so I'm not always going to understand unless I've seen it. But my niece, who's in Australia, year 11, so year 11, she's 16, 17, one or the other. Oh, I can't remember. Lose track. 16, I think she is. So she is doing computer programming at school, but they have computer programming there at that place of work. And so she went and did a week's work experience there, which was astonishing. I feel like my segue game today is going to be high. Anyway, part of the conversation was, because they're all into reading all sorts of, cutting edge stuff and thinking about what's happening in the future in the world, that the premise that creative people are the ones that can survive in the world now, because all the jobs so people who maybe were quite good with, I don't know, just collating paper or, doing a car part or whatever, because their brain works that way and they like it and they're sort of logical and they can cope with doing that sort of, I don't know, is it manual labour or just menial, or I don't know, but compared to, say, someone who's highly creative or comes up with creative, doesn't mean it's an artist. It can be just someone whose brain works in a creative manner. That the creatives are the future, because they can left of centre think things out and create things out of maybe nothing. And who knows? I said, so what does that mean? What happens to the people maybe who worked on a production line and it's all now replaced, by robots, and they're out of work? What happens to them? And they didn't think that they would survive in a world where you had to have some sort of creative bent to, to find work or to create a job or to just create. The word create, that's the word. Anyway, I thought that was a fascinating conversation, just as the conversation with Louise was fascinating about how some people with art and craft and that can just draw this amazing picture. And so if anyone wants to see what I'm talking about, someone like, I think it's Heather T or D Rooney, Roney, if you can find her on Instagram, and have a look at her pencil drawings. They look like a photo. Heather T. Rooney or Heather Rooney. Anyway, she just does life portraits and stuff, and you just would go, how on earth does she do that? Like, how do her eyes see that and make that, you know? That's just phenomenal talent. But she would have some logic about it. And then there are people like Louise who will sit and felt, and she's just in the energy of it, the essence of it. And that's how her work is. But it's not fine detail. So anyway, that's my couple of interesting conversations this week, which is fascinating, really. All sorts of things. It's good because so I've been out I have a half an hour drive out doing a overnight pet sits for 4 nights or so, and then having to drive back. So I've been getting up at 4:30 a.m. to be able to drive back to do my new client, the air hostesses, because she's a bit particular about the exact timing of feeding her cats, and then to feed some other little beautiful tabby cats. I had 2 tabby cats, and I'm a bit tired, I've got to say. All the driving, it's very hard on the body. So I haven't had as much time to do as much stitching because I've been just kind of busy. Then when I get home, I'm a bit like, oh, I don't want to do anything. All right, I like these. I love the flowers. So even though I wanted them to look like forget-me-nots, they are not going to look like forget-me-nots in the end. I think instead of taking my thread across from flower to flower, I might cast off and start the next bit again. Otherwise it's just going to be, they're going to be getting caught on the back. Yeah, so what a week anyway. Interesting week of conversations. I think this seems to be, there's a very light bit in between each colour. That's all right, I don't mind that. So I hope everyone else is enjoying their stitchery. Okay. So the tabbies, sorry if you don't like cats. How was I doing it? So the tabbies were a lovely couple who, it was her birthday on the weekend, so they went off to visit family, and it was the first time they'd left the kitties on their own. And people are always so worried about their cats, really. They're worried about their cats, and they always send a message saying, oh, they could really relax because I send photos, and they were, you know, they could just really enjoy themselves because they knew, when they could see in the photos that the cats are fine. The cats are eating their dinner. They're happy. Most of the time, the cats are happy so long as they're fed. I don't think they care who feeds them, as long as they're fed. But they were lovely. They were beautiful little cats. I find also since COVID that a lot of my, some of my newer clients, the new clients that are arriving, often haven't gone away before, and their cats, or their pets, mostly it's cats, have been the COVID pet, you know, the emotional COVID support pet. So the pets haven't actually had the time without the owners either. But they still survive. They're all right. They manage. Well, they care. They get their food. That's all they're worried about. This is going to be very flowery. Very nice. Also, when I'm staying overnight at people's places, Amelia and I had a bit of a, you know, I could do some embroidery, but often when you're staying at someone else's house, the cat is either going to just play with your string or your threads, or just wants all the attention. So I tend to not embroider at other people's houses so much. Well, I sort of feel like I'm kind of working, like, if you know what I mean. I should embroider, like it shouldn't matter. But I think it's good. I gave my hands a rest with stitching because of all the driving. So, yeah, there you go. This one's ended up a bit bigger. Doesn't matter. So long as you love your work. I do. I think I like these. I don't think it matters either if one flower is bigger than another flower, does it? That one's more like the size of those. Or maybe I'll rein it in a little bit. All right, let's do a little bit of the leaves. So you've seen what I'm doing for the flowers. So I do have a pot with green and brown. Actually, just thinking, I might blend, what colour? What sort of a coppery? Let's see, maybe one thread of floss in that mixed with a nice greeny earthy green, like that. And then I can pull that out. That's for the stalks. All right, let's start that and then we'll segue into the leaves. I think, let's see. Right, stalks are a bit thicker. So I've got three threads. This one must already be ready to go. So I've got 3 strands, and I think I'll add in 1 strand of the brown copper, so copper colour. I'm not someone who likes a lot of copper, like in the house, like some people absolutely love copper pots and stuff, but I like it individually to work with though. It's a bit more rustic, isn't it? It's a bit more of a rusty browny copper though than a bright shiny copper. All right, let's do a test. Put 1 thread with it and see how it looks. That'll be actually quite nice. Bit of variegation. Get a needle. So that'll be 4 threads of floss. Putting some hand cream on. Why not? Just noticed. Right, so that'll be 4 threads of 4 floss threads. Say that fast. And I will untangle the end. 4 threads of floss. Okay. It's not even that time of year. Yes, it's Christmas in July time. I can sing a Christmas carol. I've got 3 threads of this green and 1 thread of this sort of coppery brown colour. And the idea is to make it look a bit variegated, even though it's not variegated thread. I'm just going to work my way up the stalks. Use a similar stitch to what I was doing for this, just this sideways kind of satin stitch thing. Still haven't paid too much thought on the background yet, or whether I make what I'm making. I did say last week that I'm thinking I quite like books because they go on a shelf. So I'll just wait and see. And because I don't particularly want a lot of embroidery on my walls. Not that it's a bad idea. Just when you add that one little bit of floss in, it feels like it's a bit looser than the others sometimes. A bit loosey-goosey. Right, so you can see bits of brown, copper, rustic coppery brown, and mostly green, but I like that brown does that. Adds in that little bit of variegation. Alright, so that's what I'm going to do. I think I'll go off and do that and then come back when it's all completed and show you. Ready for next week for the next prompt. There you go. All right, I am back and here it is finished. I haven't done these lines or filled in these. I might do them later. That was fun. So I'm just going to give a little iron on the back just to get rid of some of the heat pen that might still be there. That seems to have done it. So when I sew it down, any of these little ends I'll be tucking back in under. All right, prompt number 1 finished. Woohoo! I will see you in the next one. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.